Welcome to the Multiply Podcast. I am in our Travel Kit studio today in Sacramento, California with my brother Joe. He's my younger brother. You can't tell if you look online because we look exactly the same age. Not at all. But let me introduce you, Joe, a little bit to the audience. First off, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to be together. I'm staying with them for about a week with our wife and kids, and they get to be together, which is a joy for them because in the last 3 years, they've seen each other once. And so, yeah, it's just good to be together with family and with friends. But Joe, my brother lives here in Sacramento, California, married 3 kids, right? And you serve in the local church. You own your own steel fabrication company. You recently went to ITP, which is the Instituto Tecnologic Pentecostal. Theologic. Yeah, I said technological.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, theological institution, the Pentecostal one in Bucharest, Romania, where you recently graduated, which is wild. We'll talk about that. And then you also have a background in missions in the Philippines and so on. And you've been walking with the Lord now for quite a while. And let's get a little bit into your journey. So I've obviously known you a long time, our entire lives. But we grew up in the same house, and I was listening to this guy in a reel where a lady was interviewing him, and he's like a children's psychologist or something like that. And she was interviewing him, and you've probably seen the reel. But she asks him, how is it that you get 2 different kids with the same parents? And his response is, he goes, they didn't have the same parents because one had one experience with that parents and the other one had a different experience with those same parents. They're not even the same kids. So the parents had different reactions, and how our mom and dad were with me, they were 7 years more educated and one more kid educated when you came along, so it was a different experience. And so, I kind of want to dive a little bit into understanding, what was your experience, growing up, together and all of that, and where did that lead you, and then how did you come to the Lord?
Okay. Yeah. So you and the other brothers, you guys all came from Romania, came here to the U.S., came to Sacramento. 2 years later, I was born. So I'm the only American
Right.
out of the family. Yeah.
Yeah. The rest of us were all born in Romania, and then we moved here not just to Sacramento but to North Highlands, actually to Oak Park originally, which, if you can't tell that's the hood, I mean, yeah. And then we went to Discount Hood, North Highlands, and then I remember the whole room was pink, and Mom's blinds were maroon burgundy, like that was the style. And when the sun would shine on it, the whole room would just turn pink. And that's when you came home. And we had a cake. I don't know if you remember this on your 1-year birthday. Of course you remember this.
Yeah.
But there's a picture somewhere. And we had a baby on it, but they ran out of white babies, so it was a black baby.
Yeah. I don't remember this.
Sorry, you brought it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a picture somewhere in one of Mom's albums of this like pink cake for a boy with a little black baby. Like it was both times wrong,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was you, the pink black baby.
That's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, so yeah, anyways, yeah, you were the only American essentially, as in born here in the States.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, growing up in a family of immigrants, in an immigrant community, it's like indistinguishable. I consider myself an immigrant,
100%.
even though, technically I'm not. I still remember having the argument when I was in maybe middle school with other kids, because I knew myself as Romanian,
Right.
and I knew them as Americans. And it came to where they're like, no, you were born here. You are American. What's your passport say? I'm like, I remember arguing and saying, okay, what if you're born in the ocean? What are you then? You know what I mean?
Ooh, nice.
It's like there's genetics, there's blood, and then there's obviously the community you live in that forms who you are. So
Yeah, that's like saying Elon Musk is African because he's from South Africa.
yeah,
Yeah, or like if a Kenyan's born in China, oh yeah, he's Chinese. No, he's Kenyan.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
his
he's still
ethnicity.
Kenyan,
Yeah.
American national, but
Right.
Romanian ethnic. And so, growing up, definitely part of the Romanian community, grew up hearing Romanian in the church and in the house, and I still know, speak Romanian, can read Romanian and all that.
And you learned Romanian here in the States.
Yeah, I learned it here in the States. Yeah, I maintained the language, you know. Um, I owe that to going to church in Romanian.
Mhm.
Of course, every Sunday you hear Romanian.
And to mom and dad not letting us speak to them in English.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That took a while.
Yeah.
They finally got over it as they got older.
Yeah, they got over it right about when I had my first kid, and I was going to speak to him only in Romanian, and then mom and dad only spoke to him in English for some reason.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
just
it's
made no
funny.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, funny. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was the experience growing up of kind of being between two cultures, and parents who just came to America, so they're trying to make life happen.
Mm.
And it was you couldn't say it was a super stable life. Um, I don't look back and remember anything being out of the ordinary because it was all ordinary for me. You know what I mean? I'm the youngest, and between me and Eddie is 7 years. And then from there, everyone's older to the oldest. There's 12 years between us. So essentially, we were so far apart. I was the baby. So it was like being raised by, four brothers.
Yeah, yeah,
I had four brothers raising me. Mom and dad were busy trying to make a life for us in the U.S. So in some ways, being the baby, I lucked out. If one brother didn't want to help me with something, another brother would help me. This one takes me to get ice cream. That one takes me to get McDonald's. You know what I mean?
I'll never forget. We were in Romania in 2016, and mom came to you, and she's like, "Hey, here's some pocket money," and she gave you like $500 for something.
Don't tell dad.
Yeah, she goes, "Don't tell your dad." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, good for you." And then like an hour, not even an hour later, 45 minutes later, dad came by and he goes, "Joe, here's some pocket money. Don't tell your mother." And you look at me and I was like, "Dude, I'm not saying nothing."
Yeah, I'm obeying my parents.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, it was, it had assimilating into a different culture has its troubles, it has its issues. Um, but it also, I believe it formed me. And I believe anyone who has a similar story being between two cultures, it forms you for better or for worse. It forms you,
Yeah.
and there's good things you can take from both communities. If you can take the good out of both and implement them into your life, that's wonderful. If you take the worst of both and implement it into your life,
Yeah.
there's plenty of cases, and that's rough.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That's rough.
If you take the best of both, it's an abnormal combination. So you will be abnormally successful.
Yeah.
And the same in the different direction.
Yeah.
You will be abnormally terrible.
Right.
Yeah. Like we interviewed James earlier, and he took the worst of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you take the order and the stability of American culture,
Mm.
and then you take the intensity of that spearheadedness of the Romanian side, where you throw order to the side and you just get it done. If you know the proper timing to implement those
Man.
things, that's a strength.
That's a huge strength.
Yeah, yeah, that is a huge strength. And I've seen how I've tried to implement those in my life, especially with my business. There's sometimes where you want to run your business like an American, sometimes you want to run it like a Romanian.
Right. And
Yeah.
if you know when to do it at the right time,
Yeah,
crush it.
yeah, exactly. But staying on the story of personal testimony.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd fast forward to more like to my personal testimony of coming to the Lord around that time. Basically, I think it was around high school. Around high school, gosh, I was basically a nerd. I was a loser, and on the computer a lot. I had older brothers, but I didn't have anyone my age really around me. We
Right.
had the church community, and those were all my friends, people in the church community. And it was definitely a different vibe in the youth of the church versus like high school youth. It
Right.
was, I feel like in church, everyone of the same age, we're all loose friends with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Not like high school where there's cliques and things like that.
Right.
You know, it was very much just like we were a herd, and after church, the herd comes together and runs around through the parking lot and does crazy things. You know.
This was when you were in roughly what age?
Well, this is talking like maybe 8, 10 years old, going towards like 14. You know, as you grow older, those relationships develop.
Right.
And then you just have a core group of friends you kind of hang out with once you get
Yeah.
closer to like high school age, you know?
Yeah, makes sense. When you were the kids, it was the kids as a unit.
Yeah.
You weren't individuals.
Yeah. And I look back at all the different people I hang with. I wouldn't say I was best friends with them when we were 8 or 10 years old, but they'd come over to my house. I had to go to their house. It was like it almost seemed like, well, everyone was loosely friends with each other.
Yeah.
You're another kid in the church,
Yeah, and you had different kids over on Sundays until eventually you had James over and he broke something and it wasn't allowed to come back anymore.
yeah. No, that wasn't here. That was someone else's place.
I feel like that was like several different
Yeah, it was
people's
probably
houses.
everyone's house.
I don't remember what he did. I think he did something at our house too. And he wasn't allowed to come back.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway.
Oh man. But growing older, you kind of you broke apart and kind of had just the people you hung out with, a closer clique towards high school. And around high school time, I went into independent study. I was tired of high school. I wanted to go to high school. I wanted to go to school, do my homework, do my work, just pass my classes. I wasn't a great student, but I just wanted to pass my classes. I had this feeling of like all the drama and stuff of high school. It's like, it's artificial. Like it's all going to end and it's all just going to go. I didn't take it so real as, maybe other people did or like my colleagues did. And I was just so like I don't want to be here, you know? I imagine, I don't know, the way we grew up was very much like home was my place. And we had our family, and dad had the business doing construction. And this was real home. Going to high school was like this, I definitely felt like I was going to some state program I had to attend illegally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I don't know if all immigrants have that or if everyone has that feeling, but I definitely had that feeling like I'm just trying to get in there, survive, and get out and get back home.
Because you
Get back to real life. Because it was really, for me, it was home and church.
Yep.
That was the real community. School was this thing we had to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a really good way to describe it. Like if you didn't have your church community, then it's like, dude, I feel like we would have lost so much out of our lives. Because I remember like going to school and stuff, and people were like, dude, are you going to prom? And I was like, dude, who cares about that?
Mm-hmm.
You going to the rally, or you going to go to the, you guys have to show up, because we need, school spirit, team support. And I just thought it was so lame.
Yeah.
But then I realized, dude, these people don't have the other thing that I have, which is my church community. This is all they have.
Yeah.
And I was so sad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I remember seeing the facade of it. I remember one time they handed us at school a sheet to sign up for soccer, and like everyone got one, and the teacher's telling everyone like, hey, if you guys want to sign up to play soccer, this is the form, give it to your parents, and our parents grew up without electricity.
Right.
But dad was a shepherd. Mom stayed with the cows in the field and brought them home in the evening. I don't think they're going to conceive or understand what this form means and represents.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that and shoving it and crumpling it to the bottom of my backpack, knowing I'm going to forget about it. I'm not going to show this to anyone because what's this even mean?
Yep.
We're at home. We got things to do. We got to build this. We have a garden. There's church. This school didn't fit in here. I just have to be here.
Yeah, it didn't fit in. It was state sanctioned.
Yeah, it was state sanctioned.
And if it wasn't state sanctioned, I don't think our parents would have let us go.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, they would have been like, no, just learn the basics and then move on.
Yeah, exactly. It's eerie because it almost seems like how they were in communism and they had to go.
Yeah.
To their different things where they had to be taught and trained that, they were they were taught atheism, and
Right.
they would preach it to them essentially that, God isn't real, all this and that, not saying that schools necessarily brainwash or they were brainwashing me at that point, but it's,
There's some overlap.
it very much, speaking about it now, I realize it. It's like, oh yeah, they probably felt the same way, leave your garden, leave your village, leave your herd, go to school because it's mandated by the state,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So you have to.
Well, I say all of that to bring up the point that around maybe my second year of high school, I was like, I'm going to go to independent study. I'm so tired of this. I just want to do the work and graduate and just move on,
Right.
Because for me, high school wasn't real. I had a community.
So what is independent studies for our listeners?
Independent study, it's you just basically do high school on your own time. You meet one-on-one with the teacher for that subject, whether it's, math or history or language arts or whatever.
You would check in with them once a week for like an hour.
Yeah.
And you would go through your packet on every subject.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you just do all the work.
Exactly. And, 10 weeks was a semester.
Right.
10 weeks of work. And, like geometry, I did it in 5 weeks because it was easy for me. Algebra was difficult. It took me way longer. But
Right.
you go at your own speed. It was funny, though, because you still meet other students there, because they're also having meetings and you got to kind of wait until the teacher's done and for your turn. And everyone would ask you, it's like being in jail, they'd ask you, what are you in for?
Yeah.
Because like 90% of the people there got kicked out of the school district for being bad students. And I'm just like, I'm just here because I don't want to be here.
That's how I ended up in independent studies. I got kicked out and then kicked out again. And then I had to go to independent studies.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. It's like, what are you in for? And it was always so weird to me that independent studies, they were always like, well, how do we develop more community, like with our students? So they would have like little like gatherings. And it's like, do you not understand the point of independent studies?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to have some community? The whole point of being here is it's called independent. I never understood that. Right now with Franklin, we have this Bradley County Virtual School. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we want them to go to like one activity a month, like roller skating with all the other students.
Meet at the park.
Yeah. And I'm just like, no, he has community.
Yeah.
In fact, I have him in virtual school because I don't want the community. That's why I have him there. But anyway. Yeah. So
you have a healthy church community that you're a part of.
Yeah.
In a group of friends around you with their families. And
so you were in with these other inmates.
Yeah, I was in with these other inmates. Yeah, exactly. So I was in there and that's what I was doing through the high school time. But at that point, I became more isolated because, well, now you're not even, you got your church friends, but I was a more introvert, more quiet guy. And so I actually became more and more isolated. And it was at that point it occurred to me, like, I just play video games and just do nothing. Like, I'm going to be a loser. That it clicked for me. Like, what is my future going to look like when I'm older? Like, what, am I going to ever get married? What am I going to actually do with my life?
Like in 10th, 11th grade, you were thinking that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, what's looking now, if I were to estimate what would my future be? Well, if I'm just isolated here, it's just going to be more of this. And it's like, man, this can't be good. And it's like, you're young and you're dumb and you like it and you like playing video games and you're not thinking about it, but it would continually occur to me like, man, this is going to be the rest of my life. I can't do this. I have to do something.
Right.
So in the most, immature way to process that and to realize it into something, I figured I have to go and experience life. I needed to, experience the good and the bad, the harsh and the wonderful of life. I need to like get out there,
So that way you can know what you want to do, essentially. Is that the idea? Or,
it wasn't necessarily just to know what to do. It was more just like, it was this deep yearning to actually experience life in all of its reality, like even in its tragedy. Like I remember then thinking like, I want to experience tragic loss and exceeding wins in life. I want to, you read you see a excellent movie or you read a wonderful story or even you read a biography about a man's life and there were tragic losses and excellent points of his life. And it's like, I'm just sitting here in my room with the blinds closed, playing video games,
Mm.
and it's like, man, I want a real life. I think any young man can
Yeah.
relate to that,
I agree. I agree.
and, what pathway does a young man have for that in our modern day, or, in the mid 2000s?
Yeah. Watch more movies.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. Yeah. Like go dirt biking.
Right. Yeah.
That, that might have been healthier than what I chose,
But as children of immigrants, you weren't allowed.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to go and be a part of like a team of something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I remember I wanted to play football, because I was a good runner and a good catcher, and mom and dad said no. And then I wanted to play tennis, and they said no.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So like you couldn't join a dirt bike club because it was like, we don't know what that is. Everything's bad that we don't understand.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's so, the concept in itself is so foreign to, older immigrant parents who grew up very rural like ours did. It's just like, you might as well speak Chinese to them.
Yeah.
And it falls on deaf ears. They don't understand what you're talking about.
Ride a dirt bike. There's work to do. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's just two worlds. It's like coming to the, growing up in the US and growing up where they did is like 4 generations apart.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yes.
one generation bleeds into the next. No. It's like you just skipped into the future 50 years, 60 years.
That's a really good way of looking at it. I never thought of it that way. That makes a lot of sense.
There's a transmission error in communication.
Mm-hmm.
They say one thing, you translate it into English from Romanian,
Yeah.
and huge transmission error,
Yeah,
but I already saw that transmission error and I was like, I'm not even going to bring it up.
Yeah. It's like a less stark version of like tribals from, some tribe somewhere in South America coming to America and experiencing it for the first time.
Yeah.
It's less than that, not by a lot.
Yeah, not by a lot. Yeah. Jacqueline says mom and dad are time travelers.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
They flew into America and traveled in time.
That's so,
And then we were born and it's like, what?
that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It when you start to look at it that way, it really starts to give a different lens and a different view into a lot of tragedies that you see that have happened to like friends of yours between them and their parents or between the two generations. Like it really clarifies, it wasn't mean-spirited. It was just a misunderstanding.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge, huge miscommunication.
Yeah.
Generational miscommunication. And yeah, it's just, it's like you said, it's not intentional,
Right.
Yeah.
How interesting. Yeah. So I wanted to ask before we continue on in your story. So you're sitting there and you're going, I want to experience high highs, low lows, right? Tragedy and ecstasy and all the different sides of it. The church wasn't attractive to you at that time. I know you had your friends there, your community, but I mean like the church life, not just the cultural life.
Yeah, no. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And I don't know exactly why not. That's a really good question. I almost think it was something passive. It's something that was always there as you grew up. I couldn't say like, the church hurt me or anything like that. It was just like, I mean, I was also, at this point I was maybe 17 years old, you know what I mean? So it's like still a kid, you know what I mean? I think it was just so always there that it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I was indifferent to it.
When you were 17, when you were 16, I think I became a youth leader. And it was Stefana Padat before that for like 5 years. So everything was still like.
So I wasn't even like going to youth nights.
Right.
Like I'd ride along with you with my older brother sometimes.
Right.
It's take your younger brother to church with you kind of thing.
Yeah. And then it was, the church had gone through a shift in leadership. And that always takes several years, 2-3 years, to stabilize and, there's drama and everything else. And it was right around your coming of age that shift happened.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't even realize the timing of it until right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that gap of like people who are just graduating high school or still in high school. And then young adults, it's like, if you don't catch them, if you don't have some program for them in your church to involve them. Like you'll wake up and there's no 19-year-olds, there's no 20-year-olds. Well,
Mhm.
because you didn't form a relationship when they were 15,
Right, right.
you know?
Yeah, and I mean,
As soon as they get that license, man.
yeah, when we started doing that, like that step up night that we used to do, which
Mhm.
was the junior hires coming into youth night. We had a special service just for them and stuff where,
Mhm.
we really connected with them. And then we started partnering with the Sunday school ministry. But that took like 4 or 5 years until we were there, maybe longer, maybe 7, 8 years
Yeah.
until we were eventually at a place to where we were stable, healthy, established, had built up multiple things. And then that was another one of our projects. But, up until then, nothing like that ever existed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that transition that's hard to, it's hard to catch people. You lose people, but it's also hard to bridge
It is.
between the two.
Mhm.
It's really, really delicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so then you're at this point realizing I want to experience life. I don't want to be a loser. And the church was in that transition process, so it wasn't necessarily, appealing. So then where to go from there?
Yeah. I came to, I guess I would think the only logical conclusion of a young person, in high school, growing up in Northern California or, Sacramento area, to pinpoint it down to like, what do I need to do? Like, I need to get out there. I need to hang out with people. And no, I didn't think of the church. I thought of worldly people.
Hmm.
And so it really just came down to a moment where I realized I need to go do drugs.
Hmm.
That was it. I need to go smoke weed.
Yeah, this
Because
is
that was everywhere.
yeah,
It's all grown just north of us.
yeah, in the Mendocino County
Yeah.
and all of that. Yeah, it's this is the NorCal life.
Yeah.
This
This
is what
is
everybody was doing.
no matter what, you can be less or more, but you're going to be a product of your environment.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's so true, that statement, because the youth groups, Romanian youth groups
Mhm.
on the East Coast are much more traditional and legalistic, like the American East Coast.
Mhm.
And the West Coast ones are much more laid back, emotional, charismatic, worldly. Like that's where their struggle is.
Mhm.
And it's so a representation of California American
Mhm.
and, New York East Coast American.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to
You
see.
could
Like,
do a whole study on it
yep.
and draw the lines out and it'd make complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the influence is there for sure.
Yeah.
And us being NorCal Romanians, the influence was definitely there. It
Yeah.
was, you're gonna smoke weed and ride a longboard. Like
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
James talked about his fixie on our,
Yeah.
previous,
Yeah.
like that's, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That was it, and that made sense to me at the time because um I think it's Blaise Pascal who says licking the earth, that's what everyone wants to do. They want to lick the earth, meaning taste everything of the world of life, you know what I
Good
mean?
way to put
Highs
it.
and lows and pleasures and sorrows, and it was like, it was all encapsulated into where else are you going to experience raw, real, gritty life other than,
Yeah.
doing bad things,
Hmm.
you know? But there was also this desire to feel alive, you know, to not be, just another person on a bench in a church where everyone looks the same, or to not be just in another stucco beige house
Hmm.
on a lot, you know what I mean? Like to break out of the mold and like, man, I want to experience and I want to see real life, not a facade of life, I guess that translates even from high school and how, that all bugged me, the artificialness of it,
Right.
I realized, uh, sneaking out at night, smoking weed, hanging out with bad people is going to bring me to certain places where I'm going to see the rawness of life. I'm going to feel alive
Hmm.
because I didn't feel alive sitting in my room playing video games,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And so, I hit up a friend in the community who I knew was, uh, friends with a lot of popular people back in high school, and I was like, get some weed, let's smoke, and anyways,
The
yeah.
first time that you brought that up, was your friend like, wait, what?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he had never smoked in his life either. And he's like, you're crazy. You like,
That's
yeah. So I
funny.
feel terrible because I roped him into it with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
But
Um,
the reason why it's important for us to talk about this, like, it seems funny now because it ended well. The whole
yeah,
entire process, your journey, like, that concluded well, and it didn't lead into like harder things, and then you died of a drug overdose, or God forbid, which some people's journeys do go that way,
yeah,
you know. But the reason why it's important for us to talk about this is because I want our listeners to understand, like, this is real life, and this is what young people go through every day.
mhm,
And there's mothers and fathers out there who have little kids. Dude, my oldest is coming up on 12 years old. In 2 years, he's a high schooler.
yeah,
That's kind of terrifying to think about,
right,
And I listen to, your story, and I think about him because he's into video games, like a lot of young boys are.
mhm,
And, I'm paying attention from this conversation, and I'm thinking to myself about Franklin, where I go, if he comes out of video games and he's trying to, explore and so on, I'm going to think of you. And I'm
mhm,
going to think of, like, okay, let me make sure that I'm really intentional during this period in his life, because this is the transition that, like, Joe went through, because he wants to experience life and stretch out his wings and lick the earth,
mhm,
as Blaise Pascal says. And yeah, this is really, really important. We could talk about all of the fictitious, we could make it fictitious, where it's just like, oh, I went to, I had some troubles, but then Jesus fixed everything magically. And that's just not real life. I mean, don't get me
yeah,
wrong, he does, but you go through a journey. And
right,
that's why I think it's so important to tell the story, to tell it like it is, with the highs and the lows, because this is what people go through.
right, right. I mean, yeah, it's real life. Look at every Bible character.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more gritty and messy than that, and God still uses them.
Like every Bible character, or just the parts of their stories that we preach on.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I always think that's funny. You go to Hebrews, look at the list of the heroes of the faith,
Right.
and then pick Samson, pick Lot, and then go back and see what Lot and Samson did.
Right.
And it's like, wait, hold on. The New Testament says they're heroes of the faith.
Yeah.
You know,
These people with these failures way bigger than mine.
hmm
Yeah. But these are heroes.
yeah, these are heroes of faith because faith,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
they
I love
maintained faith.
I love that the Bible doesn't cherry pick which parts of their stories it tells.
Mhm.
It just tells
it.
the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm after. So I'm really glad that we're going through this.
Yeah. So, that became my my career of, weed and drug use, and I'm thankful to God it was not excessive. And I'm thankful to God I grew up in a time where, weed wasn't even really legalized, and like hardcore street drugs were not readily available like they are today.
Yeah.
Because
And weed back then wasn't like weed today.
yeah, like they were just developing. Like I got out of all of that. The Lord saved me out of all of that as it was just getting more legalized and more official, and people were cooking up new recipes and turning it into new types of drugs all on their own.
Yeah, distilling it down into like a really potent version of
Mhm,
it, or like the CBD oils and all that, or lacing it with different things.
mhm.
That was just really starting to come up right around when you had already left it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so thankful to that. Yeah, and that's another thing to take in, not every generation's the same. Like their context changes. Now weed is way more readily available,
Right.
and people are using it at a much younger age, and you don't even know because it's flavored, and like you can't, it's not like, oh, you can smell this person smells like smoke. It's like you have
Right.
no idea.
Yeah, it's a lot more anonymous. And then
Yeah.
when you have vaping mixed into everything as well,
Mhm.
all of it is so toxic and just trying to fill a void in your life of emptiness. And it's such a gateway, all of it.
Yeah.
Such a gateway to worse things. And I feel like like even how they design food, like in the States, like McDonald's and everything
Mhm.
else, where it's made to give you a really high impact of a flavor,
Mm.
and then it's designed intentionally to drop off
Yeah.
that really
You have
enjoyable
that
flavor.
cliff.
Yeah, so you have a cliff that you drop off, so you need to take another bite, or you need to drink another sip of soda to get back to that flavor.
Mhm.
So it gives you a great experience and an intentional terrible experience right at the end of it, so it drives you
Yeah.
back to it. And it's like if you do that with food, drugs are the exact same way.
Mhm.
It's made to make you feel amazing, and then it's intentionally made to make you feel terrible, so it drives you back to it.
Right.
Today, the hook is so much more sharp, and it sets so much deeper.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I don't want people to like hear it and be like, yeah, I'm out there, I'm smoking weed, and my story is gonna be like Joe's. This is a different world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, totally. Like, and even for, ministers who might hear this, working with the youth, it's like you got to look at the context. Like, hey, you can't say, "Oh, I made it out okay, so they will too." Well, no, the tech changed. Maybe in the future it could be
Mm,
better, but we gotta admit that it changes. Sometimes the context is way worse. Sometimes
right,
the context is better. You know, maybe in the future drugs will be extremely illegal. Who knows? Different governments and change and stuff like that. Okay, that'll be much better in that regard, but right now it's very dangerous.
right,
It's
right,
very like we were growing up and hardcore drugs were like a huge no.
right.
Like, yeah, we would smoke weed, but like I still remember someone coming up to our car knocking when we were smoking, and he offered us meth, you know what I mean? And we're just like, "No, like, get away from us.
Yeah,
Get far away from us." Like, but now it's like, I feel like all those are just mixed together,
yeah, yeah.
meth to heart, or, from marijuana to meth to heroin, it's all just mixed in the same pot, it seems like.
Yeah, there used to be a big jump between the 2, and there was nothing in between.
Yeah.
And now there's, like, so many versions of in between because, like, okay, like, when I was growing up, I remember the pharmaceuticals really started to kick in really hard, you know? And then people were doing, they were smoking weed, and then it's like, well, I'm also taking, OxyContin or Vicodin or something
Mhm.
like that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a pain pill. And it was given to you by the pharmacist, so you knew that it was safer than this concoction that, like,
Out
Jeff,
on the street.
yeah, some guy gave you one in a baggie,
Mhm.
and so people were taking these pills, but OxyContin was prescription grade heroin, like, that's all it was.
Yeah.
So once they changed the recipe, it drove everybody into black tar heroin,
Yeah.
which is insane, the people that it didn't kill. And so it became, it wasn't big steps between the 2 or between the, different drug categories. It was now a lot of little steps
Yeah.
between them. So
Yeah.
you could easily boil a frog right into it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So that's just a huge danger. Look into the context, Yeah, I was, uh, lucky enough to have grown up in the time that I did. It was, we're always scared of getting stopped by police, and
Mm.
it was illegal, you know?
Yeah, and you were more terrified of getting caught, and then you have to come home and tell your parents about it. And in the remaining community, you're just like, dude, like doing
Yeah.
marijuana or smoking marijuana or like
Or
doing coke.
smoking a cigarette.
Oh, it was the end, the end of the world, and rightly so. I'm glad we grew up that
Yeah.
way. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you're
totally.
doing drugs. That's a terrible thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate how things are changing. Um, but to get back to my testimony, yeah, that went on for a few years, a lot of heavy usage. Like I said, nothing hardcore or extreme, but it was this, once again, it was a new loser lifestyle. So I went to, go lick the earth, and it's the new loser lifestyle of just, being a pothead.
So now you're not a video gamer, you're a pothead.
Yeah. At least we, had experiences where, we'd be out late at night or do stupid things or throw a party in an abandoned house or, different things like that. Other wild stories, which I won't share because I don't
Right.
want to glorify any of them,
No, absolutely.
you know? And,
But you're
but
also in danger at times, and thankfully nothing happened to you.
yeah, definitely in danger.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's multiple stories.
I remember once you guys had left church to go smoke at the gas station
Yeah.
at the Tower Mart,
Mhm.
and then some guys jumped out and robbed you guys. And
Yeah.
thankfully, they didn't stab you or hurt you or kill you or anything. I only
Yeah.
found that after you guys came back.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's, when you want to live that life, you run the risk of, getting robbed or getting killed,
Yeah.
getting hurt,
And it
or
happens.
going to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got robbed. You didn't go to jail or, get stabbed or anything or killed, God forbid. But other people didn't come out so lucky.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's too many crazy stories in the community.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, it was another loser lifestyle, but there was something to it of, you could definitely say I felt alive. It was it was a bit of a wild life. And there was something there, um and I feel so bad for young people like myself growing up then and growing up now, that there is no outlet to this wild life, to like a safe wild life. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe there are outlets today, or, my kids are still growing. I don't know what to do with them when they get to high school age.
Yeah.
But it's like that desire deep in my heart, I don't think it was wrong.
No.
The way I thought about doing it was definitely wrong. Um, but also society is very limited. It's very
Yeah.
safe. It's very structured. It's very artificial, and that's to say, like, take your kids dirt biking,
Yeah.
teach them to, I don't know, go foraging and go camping and chop firewood. Like, you
Yeah.
need to give young men like a way to feel like they have a place and a responsibility, and also like they're feeling alive. They get to feel
Yeah.
like they're living. They can feel their muscles on their body and their
Yep.
bones ache,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. That was the hole that you were trying to fill with drugs that video games weren't filling anymore. The drugs were wrong to fill it, but the hole wasn't wrong to exist.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
no, I think of my kid, Franklin, and to all parents that are listening that have kids that are maybe right in that age or coming to that age. It's not enough to tell your kids what they're not allowed to do. You have
Yeah.
to give them something to do, is what
Mhm.
I'm realizing. And so, I think about different things like with my kid where it's like, maybe do I put him into sports, but I don't want that community,
Mm.
because there's a lot of sin in that community.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that you're completely right. Like that wildness that men have in us, that God made us that way, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I just wish that there was a more readily available outlet for young men to pursue, like wilderness, something like you were suggesting.
Yeah.
Man, I would love
I
that.
think back to dad, he was a shepherd. I mean, it's not any more wild than taking sheep out into literally the wilderness so they
Yeah.
can graze, and, fending off a bear, or,
Yeah.
he ran into a few bears
Yeah.
when he was of high school age,
Yeah. And
and
he
young.
was out there with several other grown men. And it's like, yeah, that's where you learn to be a man. That's where
Yeah.
you have that camaraderie where you sit around the fire and you get explained things and you take the
Mhm.
dogs out and they fight wolves and that's great, man.
Yeah, yeah, it's like when you're a young boy, all you want to be is like a knight. You want to be a warrior. You want a sword. You want to slay a dragon. And it's like, yeah, that's not wrong.
Yeah.
That's not wrong. That's very true. You should do that, but it should be realized into a healthy way. And us as parents have to like guide our kids down that, our young
Yeah.
boys down that.
I was preaching in Los Angeles last weekend, as you know, at the Forward Conference. And Saturday, I began. I think it was either it was either Friday or Sunday. I can't remember which message, but I began the intro talking
Mhm.
about reminiscing and about what I wanted to be when I was a kid,
Mm.
which was a knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
And it's like obviously there's the knight part of it that's exaggerative, but the idea of pioneering and testing your resolve and being wild and being on that adventure,
Mhm.
like that's the heart of every man.
Mhm.
That's so the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just being wild, but it's like realizing that you actually want discipline,
Right.
because you
Yeah.
want to be a knight, you want to be a warrior, you have to be very disciplined,
Yeah. It's
but at
taming the
first,
wild.
yes, taming the wild, because you're young and you're like, all you see is the wild aspect. Well, us as parents have to come in and
Yeah.
discipline it, like draw it down a pathway so it could become something.
Yeah.
So they can grow up and become men,
Yeah. Yep.
not
Yep.
boys, perpetual boys,
And
you
this
know?
is which is the bane of our society. But this is, for me personally, this is so inspiring, and it just makes me, want to start making different plans with my kids and stuff. Just talking through this with you, Joe. And so much more. I think for our listeners, for those that have kids, and for those that are just young men, that I'm certain just from conversations and conversations and conversations I've had with people, this resonates with young men. Where it's just like, yeah, like I want to go out there and live a life worth living, but I don't want to go into sin into the world.
Mm.
So what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Because the church will tell us, sit down. And I don't mean the church. I mean, like oftentimes the institution's mistake is to tell us, to sit down, be quiet, behave, listen,
Mhm.
be obedient, get the same haircut, wear the same outfit,
Mm.
and there's just something wild inside of us in pursuit of adventure that doesn't want to be stifled in that way.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, that's why you have a masculinity crisis now.
Yeah.
The way I see it is all girls grow up to become ladies, to grow up to become women.
Mhm.
not all boys grow up to become men.
Mm,
Like for girls, it's just natural. They go through that maturity, boom, they develop, they're a lady now. But
interesting.
men can be boys forever. Men actually have to be worked on, disciplined, informed.
How interesting, because so if we were to say the phrase, these are, the Peter Pan generation, right? Like Mark
Mhm.
Driscoll refers to, or to say, they're still boys in men's bodies. You never hear that of women.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that until right now. You never hear
It's
like, oh,
very
like
natural for them.
yeah, she's still just a little girl. How interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in ancient days, there was rite of passages for men.
Right.
There
Right.
wasn't really for women.
Yeah. There was times where they were considered, of marrying age, and it usually has to do, with their cycle and
Yeah.
all of that. But for men, it required accomplishment.
Yeah. It required
Yeah,
accomplishment.
like in the Bushman tribe, still to this day, you have to go with the other men and kill a lion,
Mm.
and then you're considered a man.
Yeah.
Like there was something you had to do.
You had to prove it.
Yeah, you had to prove it.
Yeah. But, a woman has a womb and gives life.
Hmm.
And when she's, biologically ready for that, she's,
She becomes a woman.
yeah.
There is no biological counter for men when you
Yeah.
become a
I
man.
mean, you grow a beard.
Yeah.
Big deal.
How
If
many
you
boys with beards do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
They always make the best coffee though, don't
Yeah.
they?
Yes. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. And we look at society today and I almost feel like back in old days. So if the man became accomplished, he takes the girl, marries, they have a child. Well, she's a woman now. That could be seen as a rite of passage,
Sure.
maybe. Um, Now it's interesting. Like men, they don't have the rite of passage. The rite of passage is getting married.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost detrimental though, because who chooses who becomes a man then? Logically, the women.
The woman. Yeah.
So now you have the collective consciousness of feminine thought deciding what a man is.
Which is never a healthy society, because masculinity is bestowed from other men. It can't be
Passed
bestowed
down.
from women. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the same
They're
way-
trying their best too.
Right.
They don't know.
In the same way that I can't bestow femininity to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And vice versa is also true. There's this phrase that I ascribe to, a lot. And it's funny because I first heard it in a different version from Dad, but it's I remember when I had started spending time with like more professionals, like in the building industry, like architects and engineers. I was like, okay, these are the adults, and the phrase and I realized it working with them, that there are no such thing as adults.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I heard somebody else say it another way. He goes, I always felt like an idiot. And then I got into like the room with like the bosses, and I was like, okay, like these are like I'm an idiot, but these are the guys. And then they started talking, and then it hit me all at once. Oh, it's idiots all the way up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like there's nobody coming to rescue us. We are the adults.
Yeah.
And then the way that Dad always said it is he said, when I left home from work, if I saw something that one man did and I couldn't do it, it was better for me to cut off my hands and throw them in the garbage, because they were of no use to me. Meaning whatever anybody else can accomplish, I can accomplish too. It's not like they're a different species, like they came from outer
Yeah.
space. They're just people like me.
Yeah. Totally.
And in that same way, just kind of like looking at, well, when are you an adult?
Mm.
When do you arrive? Because oftentimes, right, like young men will suffer with imposter syndrome, where
Yeah.
people will see us as adults, but we don't feel like adults.
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, that's everybody,
Yeah.
and when you get comfortable with realizing that, you go, oh, okay, everybody's just projecting, or we're pedestaling other people, so we're projecting on them. But the reality is we're all just people trying to make it work and figure it out. And how would you define when somebody would consider themselves a man?
Yeah.
One of my favorite definitions of it is when you become responsible for other people.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good
Definitely, yeah.
definition. I'm responsible for a wife and children. They depend on me. And so they're underneath me. And so I need to be a man to be able to lead them, to give
Yeah.
them covering.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That's more external. I would say internally.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know it's not a complete definition, but
Yeah.
that's, one of the pieces to it.
Um, Definitely, like internally speaking, it's that whole imposter syndrome,
Mm,
you know? It's when you understand, like you said, yeah, we're all just trying to make it work. Everyone's an imposter,
mm,
and you don't feel like an imposter anymore,
yep.
And you're like, okay, so we're all imposters. Well, which imposter am I gonna be? You know?
Hmm.
Basically what I'm saying is when internally you realize who you are, and even more, you realize who you are not.
Yeah. That's really well
I'm not
put.
going to be this kind of guy. I'm not going to be that kind of. At the end of the day, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is who Joe is. I do this, and this is how I do things, and I don't do them like Eddie does or like other people I know
Yeah.
do. That's how they do it.
Yeah.
Because that's who they are.
Because that's who they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because there's one right way or one wrong way necessarily. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, there's universal truths, but like you have your flavor that you bring and I have mine, and mine's not supposed to be yours. Yours is
Yeah,
supposed to be
I don't have
mine.
to mimic you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what adds to the imposter syndrome is, as we're trying to figure out our identity, we like mimic different things. We try them on, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you try one on and you feel like it's not your clothing, but you're just trying to force it, you're going to feel like an imposter
Yeah.
forever.
100%.
You got to develop your own style in a way. Like you almost take one model of, adult, and you kind of tweak it a little bit to your personality, your age range, your cultural context, your
Yep. Yep. Yeah. To what you like, what you prefer.
Mhm.
You eventually find out what parts of that identity are because of your childhood traumas. And then you go, oh, that's why I do that. And then you fix those.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just the
Yeah.
process.
And then some things you like, their preferences. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm into this.
Yep.
I like this. I want to be all about that.
And so, not that we've derailed, because I don't think we have. I think that this conversation is extremely important.
Yeah.
But kind of coming back full circle, that's the journey that you were on when you were trying to, explore the world and everything else to figure out who you were essentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And so you went on this journey. Let's pick back up where it kind of derailed from.
Yes. Yeah. So even though independent study was independent, like you said, they try to build community, and we would have to do PE with multiple students.
Oh,
You'd meet at the park with like 10 people, and they'd make you run around the park 4 times. It was a mile,
I forgot about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I met Jacqueline. I met Jacqueline there, and she was funny. She would always tell the gym teacher, hey, those who can't do, teach, and those who can't teach gym.
That's so Jack.
She would tell that to the gym teacher. Yeah, Mr. Guerrero.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Would he chuckle at it?
Yeah, you chuckle at it. You use an ex-cop. Yeah, he's a gym teacher. Yeah. So,
And Jackie was like 90 pounds soaking wet,
Yeah.
this like sweet, dainty girl that obviously she didn't mean it like in a hostile way or a rude way. She's kind of poking fun at him. And
exactly. And, I didn't want to be there. I had to graduate high school, and she was there and always prodding me and talking to me and stuff. And it was just this cute American girl. And, eventually I was in a independent study with another person in the Romanian community. It's funny, you look back and you realize that people you grew up in the Romanian community, they were there for milestones in your life. You grew up together and you did things together. I was afraid to ask Jacqueline for her number, and I told my buddy about it, and he's like, oh, hey, wait here 1 second. I was going to take him home. I was going to drop him off on the way home. And so he was riding with me, but he was like, wait in the car 1 second. And he goes over to Jacqueline and gives her my number.
Nice. What a homie.
Yeah. So anyways, we text, and, eventually we started dating. I think I was about 17 at this point. She must have been 16. Or maybe I was 18, she was 17. But anyways, we started dating, and, as we knew best, and we would probably for a year and a half, we dated, we hung out, we, did, smoked together and stuff like that. Stupid teenagers in Sacramento.
Well, she wasn't Christian, and neither were you at the time.
Yeah, she's American, comes from an American background, complete American. We could talk about, the fascinating parts of her life, her background maybe a little bit later, but she's as white bread American as it gets.
Nice.
You know what
And
I mean?
her parents or her family wasn't like, they weren't churchgoers.
No, 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 no. They weren't churchgoers. Her dad took her to church a handful of times, you know,
Gotcha.
but there was no regular church attendance. Church meant nothing to her. You know, she grew up more liberal. She actually, you know, thought Christians were dumb and crazy. And,
Right.
you know, I remember one point we were in our dating phase, and I told her what I believe, and it's funny because I didn't go to church anymore. You know, once I
Right.
started my, pothead career, I stopped going to church, you know, and I told her like, yeah, you know, we believe that, you know, God created the earth in 6 days, rested on the seventh, you know, and it's kind of funny looking back because it's like, well, did I really believe that or did I not? I mean, it's what I grew up with,
Right.
you know, but I told her that. And when I told her that, I was kind of like, yeah, I believe this, you know what I mean? And I told it to her and she like started laughing at me, you know what I mean? I got offended and everything. And, you know,
Is it a fight?
yeah, young people arguments, you know,
Yeah.
um, but maybe a year and a half in, you know, we split up, we broke up. You know, she wanted classic, all women, you know, grow up to become ladies. She wanted to grow up and go get a job and have a life and eventually get married, you
Mhm.
know. Um, I wanted to get married too, but I was having too much fun, you
Mm.
know. I still remember before I actually started dating Jacqueline, when I got to know her at school, and I was saying in my head, like, man, I decided to never get married. At that point, I was like, I'm never going to get married. And then I met Jacqueline, and I was like, I had an option. Like, I need, this girl's amazing. Like, I loved her personality and her character, and I saw so much potential in her
Right.
for like a person to be with, you know? And there was like a good side in me saying, like, hey, there, you have a future with this girl.
Mm.
And then there's the bad side of me, like, you know, drugs and fun and being young and dumb.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I'm going to date her because I have two options. One, never get married ever, or date and marry this girl,
Mm.
you know? And I remember having that conversation with myself, like, I'm going to date her, I'm going to marry her. But, you know, because I was with one foot on that path and one foot on another path, it didn't materialize.
Mm.
You know, you can't live in both worlds. You got to make a decision, pick your road.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're picking something. You're picking
Yeah.
a living in between, which,
Well, she picked
yeah,
for
I
me.
guess pick for
You
you.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well said.
And she's like, we're splitting up, we're moving on. Like, I want to have a life. You can do whatever you want, you know? And so, you know, we were broken up. And at this point, you know, I was pretty heartbroken, and she just wanted to cut it off and move on so she doesn't have to be heartbroken. And but I, you know, I still weaseled my way into her life and, you know, came over her house and things like that. Um, so I was still going over her house here and there, hanging out, trying to still be in her life, still be present in her life.
How were you going over if you didn't want to, like, who are you seeing? What was your excuse?
You know, you just bug her and say, hey, can I come over? And she was 17 years old, you know what I mean? Or 18.
Rude.
Yeah, she's still a girl.
Yeah.
She's still a little girl, you know? You can convince her if you're pushy enough.
Yeah, that's funny.
You know, they're, you know, when you're young, you're impressionable. Someone puts pressure on you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you know?
That's funny.
Yeah. And at that point, I was hanging out mostly with friends, you know, doing stupid things. And it kind of came to a critical moment where, and this is like the meat of my testimony, kind of where it happens right here is we were hanging out at a hookah lounge, you know, and we're smoking in a hookah lounge with some Romanian friends, and, you know, there's all sorts of people, and you bump into other Romanians.
Were you guys together there?
No, me and Jacqueline were not
So
together.
you were still okay.
Yeah, we were broken up then, and, you know, she wouldn't come hang out with me anywhere. It was just like if I go to her house and like have dinner with her and her mom. You know?
Okay. Was
So-
she there at the hookah lounge?
No, no, no.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, she was not at the hookah lounge. It was just me and friends, and, you know,
Just you and some friends.
yeah, me and some friends. And I remember being there, and we bump into this one Romanian, and I at this point, I think me and all my friends are like really drunk, and so is this guy. Bump into someone out of the community, much older than us, more like Gen X, and he tells us, "Hey, tomorrow night, at this church, there's going to be a prophet. You know, so imagine that you're at a hookah lounge and you bump into Romanians and you think these young people have forgotten about the church and they've left from the church and they've turned their back on it. But even in this dark place, there's people who are like, there's going to be a guy who's going to talk in the name of the Lord tomorrow night at this church, you know?
Wow. Wow.
And I mean, that should be very impactful for people to realize, like, if you have loved ones that have left the church and you think all hope is gone, like it's still on their mind. It's more on their mind than you think.
Yeah. The seeds that were planted are still there.
Oh yeah. If they grew up in the church, how many times we would, you know, be up late doing drugs until like 4 a.m. And when the smoke settles and it all quiets down, you talk about God with your friends.
Yep.
Worldly people, wayward children.
Yeah.
They're like, do you think God really exists? And that discussion starts.
Yeah.
It's very real.
Very real, very common. That wasn't unique to like one person's situation. So for people that are listening, no, that's a very normal thing. I remember when I was in the world, that would be our conversations. You would get high or drunk or whatever, and that's what would be on your mind. And you would be like, well, and you would excuse yourself. You'd say things like, I'm just going to do this for like a couple more years. And then, you know,
always,
you know, everybody's plan was to get saved, you know, maybe in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn my life around, come to Jesus, get baptized, be a family man like my dad and go to church. It's just a couple of years right now. That was everybody's plan.
That's everyone's plan when they start doing drugs is to stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
Everyone wants to they know it's a trap, but it's also fun.
Right.
And your flesh likes it, but there's something convicting you, telling you it's bad. It's not just society and it's not just the church that told you that. You know, it's a spiritual thing, and you know, so if you have family members who are in the world, it's like, do not give up praying for them.
Yeah.
There is still a voice in their mind.
Absolutely.
That God's working through. And I believe the more we intercede, the more amplified that voice gets.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
And I hope and pray that people that are listening to this, that have family members that are struggling, that they understand that their prayers are so valuable.
Oh yeah.
Even if your family members don't say anything to you about it, man, they covet it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you're in a dark place, you're like, dude, I really hope somebody's praying for me. You're panicking.
Oh yeah. When you're in that lifestyle and you're in a dark place, you think back to your mom praying for you.
Yep. 100%.
Oh yeah.
So you're in that hookah lounge, you're with your friends, you guys are drunk, smoking, and another random Romanian who also happened to be at the same hookah lounge, who was also probably drunk, Gen X roughly, bumps into you guys and just mentions, hey, there's going to be this prophet at this church?
Yeah. He tells us, I'm going to be there that night because there's going to be a prophet, be there,
Oh, so he was telling you he's going to be there.
Yes.
And encouraging you guys to be there as well.
Yes.
And you were all at the hookah lounge.
All high, yes.
Yeah.
All on who knows what he was on. I know what I was on, and it's just like, right there. And then me and my closest friend at the time, stupid drunk, we're like, okay, we're going to go. We promise, we promise each other we're going tomorrow night to go see the prophet, to receive a word from the Lord. I don't know. We promised while we're drunk to go to God's house.
Right.
It seems absurd,
Yeah, it seems ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous, and, we're all like arms around, each other, embracing. Yeah, I promise we're going to do this, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, we're so drunk. Like, I hope he's going to forget. I hope so, because I'm going to forget. And, so fast forward to the next night, I'm hanging out with Jacqueline. I'm at her house.
Right.
It's about 8 p.m. We're having dinner. Americans, they have dinner at like 5.
Right.
By 8, they're wound down. They're not leaving the house after 9
right.
for anything, And my buddy calls me up.
The one that you were drunk with the night before.
Yeah, and that I promised.
Right.
I gave my word, you know what I mean? And at least in my time, that meant something, to make a promise. When you say those words, it's done.
It's
done.
Like, we always grew up, if you said something, it was like, are you telling the truth or not? But if you said, I promise, that's
it.
That's it. That means you have to.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you're linked up now. It's done. And, he's like, hey, man, okay, let's go. Like, you want to meet up there, or how, how are we doing this, And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, remember last night he said there's going to be a prophet at this church? Like, dude, are you serious, man? Like, get out of here, man.
So he just called you and he was,
Yeah, he's like, let's go. I'm ready to go. You just got in my car, whatever, And he's like, I knew you were going to do this, Joe. Cause I'm like, dude, I'm not going to go. We were drunk, man. That doesn't count. That promise doesn't count.
Right.
And I was trying to back out of it. And he was pushing me. He's like, no, you can't do this. I'm going to come. I'm going to pick you up. He's got to drive across town, drive a different direction across town, go to the service. It's a Nopte de Vege.
which is
It starts at night and it goes late into the night.
yeah, like it starts at like 9 o'clock and it's called like a Nopte de Vege.
It's a night watch.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the night watch of prayer.
Yeah.
And so it started at like 9 o'clock and it would go until it goes. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he's like, I'll pick you up, I'll take you there, I'll take you guys home, and then I'll go home. Like he was willing to go way out of his way for me. I mean, think about this. This is a worldly person, young guy that does drugs, doesn't really go to church. He was willing to do all of this so we could go to a prayer night. And it's wild to me. I look into the story and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why did he care so much? But he pushed me. He really pushed me. I was like, man, I can't get out of this, So I'm on the phone with my friend and he's trying to convince me to go to this prayer meeting. And I look over at Jacqueline. I'm in her house at the time, trying to get back together with her and, trying to be more present in her life. Hopefully, we'll start dating again. And I tell my friend this on the phone and he's like, oh, good. We'll take her too. And so I found my way out,
Right.
how to get out of going to this prayer night. And I'm like, hey, if Jacqueline says, she'll come, then we'll all go. And, I'm looking at her, she's in her pajamas. She's definitely not getting out of the house. She's going to say no. Because at that point, my friend on the phone says, okay, yeah, ask her. I'm like, boom.
Oh, done. You got your way out.
Yeah, I got my way out, So I look over at Jacqueline. She's sitting on the countertop in her pajamas. I'm like, hey, you want to go to a prayer night? She looks over at me and she goes, yeah, okay, let's go.
You're like, no, you're supposed to say no.
Yeah. Why would she want to go to a prayer night? Like the whole
Go to church.
Yeah, she didn't go to church. It's late at night. She doesn't even want me over, really.
Right.
She wants me gone.
She's finally going to get rid of you.
Yeah. Oh, 8 o'clock at night. Let's go across town. Friend's going to pick us up and who knows how long we'll be gone. But so my buddy comes, picks us up. She obviously changes out of her pajamas, gets dressed for church, and we go out to that Nopte de Vega, that prayer night. And we come in there, it was a light service. There wasn't a lot of people. The lights are mostly dimmed, just light on the stage. And, Puyu is over there and he's just having an encouragement for prayer, just kind of getting people to get into more prayer. He didn't have a prophecy or anything. But as Jacqueline tells me her experience, she had been in our Pentecostal churches like 2 times and she never sat through a full service before. At this point, this was her first experience meeting or being at a Pentecostal service, which is a terrible place to take a person for the first time.
Yeah. First time you're going to meet our Pentecostal Romanian community is at a, not the Vege, at a intense Pentecostal charismatic prayer night watch service where it's about zeal and we're going to push into the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
That is not a great,
Terrible place to take a liberal white American girl.
yeah, who isn't a Christian.
Yeah, who has no context.
Yeah.
And thinks everything we believe is absurd.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, she was functionally an atheist.
Yeah.
So,
So that's her first experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, she comes up there and we sit on the benches and we're listening to Puyu speaking. And this is what Jacqueline tells me happens to her.
So afterwards, Jacqueline's recounting this experience and this is what she's told you.
Yeah. She told me what was happening in real time, sitting on that bench, listening to Puyu.
Who was speaking in Romanian.
Who was speaking in Romanian.
You were translating in her ear in English, or?
A friend was translating into English.
Mm-hmm.
And, Puyu leans into the mic and says, you know, it's not an accident you're here. He says this in Romanian,
Right.
you know, and my buddy leans over to Jacqueline and says, it's not an accident you're here, you know? However, Jacqueline in her heart says, when she heard Puyu say, it's not an accident you're here, she felt in her mind something say, it's not an accident you're here.
Mm.
And then the buddy leans over and confirms what she's feeling in her heart.
Wow.
And it goes on like this for a few minutes. Everything he's saying, she's trying to just listen to him in Romanian. She hears it translated in her heart, if you will. My buddy leans over and says those same words.
Wow.
And is confirming it in her ear, you know? And at that point, you know, she's like, what's going on? You know? She's almost like starting to shake and starting to cry and like supernatural experience, you know? And then the prayer begins and she starts to, you know, she doesn't know what to pray. And she kind of starts to try and pray as she knows best.
Right.
And, you know, she starts tearing and weeping. And at that point, there were ministers in the audience, and Stefan Lepedat comes up to her and like helps her pray, leads her in the sinner's prayer.
What a perfect person
I know
to be there. I mean,
right?
Stefan is such an amazing evangelist with such a heart for people.
Right.
And he doesn't mind getting into the nitty gritty or uncomfortable.
He doesn't mind the
awkwardness.
tears and the sweat and the snot.
Nope. He's a good, godly man.
Yeah. And I mean, if it wasn't for him, like I wouldn't have known what to do.
Right. You weren't even a Christian.
Me and my buddies wouldn't have known what to do. We're all dumb, you know? But yeah, he comes in and he's like helping her pray, like you need to repent of your sins, and, you know, goads her through all of it. And she, you know, she literally repents, gives her life to the Lord, and starts speaking in tongues, all in this one prayer.
That's wild.
All of it, baptized in the Holy Spirit, everything together right there.
Didn't know about the Pentecostal, the church, culture, all of that.
I never told her about speaking in tongues.
I mean, that's the kind of thing where you're like, I'll tell you after you're saved about that part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And gets saved and begins speaking in tongues, baptized.
Yeah, right there in that church, in that service.
What were you feeling in that moment watching this happen?
Yeah, it was like, this is crazy. But at that point, I realized I lost her completely. She's the Lord's now. I can never get her back. That's what went through my mind. I wasn't saved at this point. Right. I didn't know what I was doing there, you know? But I realized it was significant, you know, hearing all these stories growing up in the Pentecostal church. You hear all these intense conversion stories. I mean, you hear anyone's testimony, it's intense. It's always intense, you know? And I'm watching one happen before my eyes that directly involves me. But I also, you know, I realize, well, I lost Jacqueline now, you know, she's Christian. That's when that path opened up of like, okay, what do I do with my life? Because I can't see a life without her, you know? There's something speaking to my heart way before saying, I'm going to marry her and live with her and, you know, we're going to be together, you know? So that's at the point where I started coming to church. You know, you were the youth leader, so I had a perfect in. The youth leader lives with me. Yep. You know, you were having your discipleship programs then, and I'm a more systematic and studious person. I like to have things laid out and weed through things and figure out technical things. So for me, I couldn't just jump into this experience. I had, maybe it's a strength, maybe it's a weakness, I don't know. But for me, I was like, I'm going to attend discipleship and Bible study. I mean, I must be the only person who attends Bible study who was not saved. You know, I was like, I'm going to come to Bible study so I can study the Bible to see if I want to follow this religion. Right. And actually adhere to it. I want to understand what it is before I sign up. Yeah. You know, that's how I think. So I went for a year and a half, maybe, I think. And at that point, I was just building community. I met good, healthy friends. I realized what a loving community and good friends with a good influence over you is like. You know, that's not to disparage even my old friends in the world, because I'm still close with some of them. Right. And I still think about them regularly. And they were still good friends. We were just making poor decisions, you know?
But you still cared about them, still loved them, you still love them.
And they were a bad influence on me, and I was a bad influence on them. Right. You know? So, but I met a good community and learning the Bible, and you know, it came to a point where we went to a prayer camp.
The summit.
No,
It
Peniel.
was a Peniel at the
It was
time.
a
Yeah,
Peniel
it
at
was
the time.
before I turned into the summit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And yeah, I still remember. I'm like, okay, on the second day, I'm gonna give my life to the Lord.
Yeah,
Like I don't know why I told myself day 2. It's not gonna be day 1. It's gonna be day 2.
you scheduled it.
I scheduled my conversion. You know, and I still remember. You know how do you schedule your conversion? So it was. I remember the prayer session that time. It broke out, like we couldn't even hold service anymore
Yeah.
because worship led directly into prayer. We took all the chairs and I remember the chairs being ripped out of the way to make room for a prayer meeting.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't going to be a sermon anymore.
Yeah, we didn't have any time for the sermon. The worship
No.
team played 3-4 hours would go by, and it was just God's presence.
It was just God's presence. It was literally a organic studuing, or
Yeah.
striving after the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And yeah, I remember, okay, starting the sinner's prayer and praying, and then even though you schedule it, it was very sterile and tame. But with enough prayer and my friends around me praying for me, James was there. I got my boogers and tears all over his shirt.
James the Darian.
Yeah, there was just a point to where I really, really let go, and I stopped trying to schedule my conversion.
Yeah.
And I just threw myself into Christ's arms and just gave my life over to him. And, even in there, I began speaking in tongues, and yeah, I gave my life to the Lord. I was baptized in the Holy Spirit, and God saved me right then and there. And, I made that commitment that I want to stick with for the rest of my life. And then after this, me and Jacqueline finally got back together, and we got married.
Yeah.
Married, had 3 kids and all that. Yeah.
I remember. So Jacqueline, your guys' church experience was right around Christmas. Sorry, not your guys', but Jacqueline's, because we were celebrating Miha graduating. We were having a party for Miha's master's degree, Miha Tomutsa. She had finished her master's degree. It was right around the Christmas time, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it was cold out.
Yeah, and we were there at this party, and you called me, and I was like, hey, what's up, man? And you're like, hey, Jacqueline got baptized with the Holy Spirit. I don't know what to do. Can we meet? And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
And then we met up at a Mel's Diner.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting, Simila to my left, Jacqueline across from me, you to the left of her, across from Simida, my wife, and explaining to Jacqueline that now that she's saved, I don't know that you guys were broken up, but that she couldn't be in a relationship with you because she's saved. And I was trying desperately not to make eye contact with you because I know that you loved this girl,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I remember that conversation and how wild it was that, not that long after, at Peniel, you ended up giving your life to the Lord. And I remember that night. And, it's so hard. Like, okay, like being the older brother, it's so hard because it's like, I didn't know if me coming to pray for you would hinder it because we're brothers and it's kind of uncomfortable,
Trying to force it.
Yeah, and I wanted your conversion to be real and authentic, and so I was, because I was part of the leadership of it, so I was going around and praying for different people, and we were in prayer together, and I remember I was just going, Father, I'm just gonna follow you wherever you lead, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. And just trying to be really sensitive to the Holy Spirit, and I would kind of pop in every now and then just to check up on you. And I remember hearing you speak in tongues, and I was just like,
Nice.
we've arrived. We're here now. Oh, thank God. Yeah. And I remember it was just a little over 10 years after I had gotten saved. Yeah, it's a little over 10 or 11 years after I gotten saved. And I remember just reminiscing on that time frame that had gone by and where your journey had gone. But the fact that you were now saved was like, this is the best.
Yeah.
This is so awesome. Yeah, no, it's wild. So then you guys ended up, giving your life to the Lord, getting baptized in the Holy Spirit. By the way, for everybody who's listening, that's a Pentecostal that got saved and it took them years to get baptized in the Holy Spirit. If you want to listen to Joe and Jackie's story and be jealous, you have my permission. You can absolutely be jealous that they didn't have to struggle with this like years of trying to, both of them get saved and baptized at the same time of their salvation. So, yeah. Hats off to you. That's, praise God for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
My journey wasn't that way. It was
Yeah.
7 years between the two. But no, that's good, man. And then, yeah, what happened from there?
Yeah. So then we decided to, date the Christian way, courting,
Right.
Um, we go through that process for, I don't know, maybe another year and a half. And then, we got married. We did everything, like you're supposed to do it, like you're supposed to do it as Christians. And we just started to get assimilated into the church. We didn't know exactly what to do in the church and what our place would be and what our
Right.
role would be. And we're, navigating marriage, being young and married. We got married at, I was 21, she was 20 years old.
Wow. Yeah, that's early.
Yeah, it's really early. Yeah.
Would you have done it differently?
No way. No, that was perfect.
Right.
It was perfect. Yeah. I had just enough life experience,
Yeah.
just enough life experience, I think, personally.
Yeah.
That is enough.
You knew just enough, but you also didn't know too much
Yeah.
to jam up the process.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't have preferences made. I think it's good to get married young because you actually develop all of your habits together.
Right.
Your preferences and
Yeah.
your tastes. And, once you're 40, it can be difficult. You know what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah. And
Down
it's
to
not
a detail.
impossible. You just have to be aware of it and be aware that change comes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Change comes and, yeah. And being married to an American because, yeah, I'm American, I guess, because I grew up in America my whole life, but the cultural differences, they're not huge, but when you live together and need to make life decisions together, that's huge. And even to this day, even like yesterday, we're talking about, oh, you think that because you're American. I say to her,
Yeah.
and she's like, yeah, I think you're right,
Yeah.
It's
There's deep roots, and the deeper you go, the more different you see the differences.
Yeah, yeah, and those things play out. Even how you say something or how I bring up a subject might be abrupt for American sensibilities,
Right.
but not for Romanians. That's fine because it's just a fact.
Right.
It's harsh, Well, it's harsh if you're American.
Yeah. No, and that's true.
Yeah,
It's
you know what
very
I
true.
mean? Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
So how does that play out when you speak like that to your wife? When you speak harshly to your wife, or she perceives it as harshly?
Right. Which you're not communicating it harshly, but she's being communicated too harshly.
Yeah, and so now you got to take, well, okay, did I mean it that way? That doesn't matter. How she feel about it. That matters
That
too.
matters. Yeah.
No,
It's like the difference between like us and Americans is Romanians will be more harsh, kind of at least similarly in the same way that like Slavics or Russians are more harsh than we are. And we're like, whoa, like that's so,
yeah, they're even harsher.
yeah, they're even harsher, And so like for us, like I think it's easy to identify it like in the Slavic community where it's like, oh, like that's so like direct, but for them they're like, no, it's not direct. It would be dubious and disingenuous to not just tell you the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas like with Romanians, we want to be a little bit, politer
more
and
delicate.
nicer and
Yeah.
delicate, but that could also be seen as me being dishonest. Like Germans are that way, where like a German will ask you, do you want something to drink? And a Romanian will be like, no. And even though they want something to drink, but as a Romanian, we feel like you have to ask me 3 times before I finally say yes.
Yeah.
But that's seen as very dubious and dishonest and, So it's interesting seeing the differences in the cultures.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then you look at your kids and you're like, well, are they more Romanian or are they more American? What do they inherit and things like that? So yeah, that's been interesting, but it's also wonderful too,
I mean, if you bring forward the good out of both, like we started this
Exactly.
whole conversation, right?
Exactly.
And you get to see that mirror to your kids where you're like, okay, the bad things about Romanian, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
And the bad things about American, we're going to give you the best of both.
Yeah, the best of both. Yeah, get the best of both worlds. So yeah, no, we were young, married, I think, for about 5 years before we had kids. But I think 2 years in, 3 years into our marriage, at this point I was welding, starting my own steel business because it's what Dad did.
Mhm.
And, I chose in life, hey, I'm going to go down this route. It was the same idea with making a decision of, video games or going into the world. I was doing web design and coding and graphic design. And I had the option, like, should I go down this road or should I work with my hands and do steel? And I decided steel because I figured I want to learn the basics.
Yeah.
Coding, computer and tech is built upon what people built with their hands. I want to go back to the basics. You know, I was always like that about anything, whether it's food or nutrition, or I want to work with my hands. I want to start there and grow later into other directions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, welding is something that's going to have to be around forever.
it's going to have to be around forever.
Yeah,
It's for sure, you know.
Yeah,
There's
if
always
we
going to
go
be work.
into post-apocalyptic World War III, welding will still be around. Programming won't.
Yeah.
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 So meaning even in the furthest extreme, welding will always be
Yeah.
needed.
And even if it's not welding, well, construction and building things, it's
Right.
like, yeah, you know, that's been a great skill that's formed me. But we weren't sure what we're doing. And we were both in church one Sunday. She was on the women's side. I was on the men's side. You know, at that point, it was more gender segregated. And we leave church. We get in our car together to go home. And we start talking. And we realize we both had the same epiphany. We both had the same idea during church service, the same burden placed on our heart.
Wow.
You know, and it was, we need to do something like for the Lord. We need to get involved in serving him. That could mean in church, or that could mean anything, but like, I want to do something for God. I want to be engaged in some kind of like spiritual work.
Right.
And at this point, we were like, okay, well, what do we do? Let's pray and fast for 5 days. You know,
Great.
we're going to pray and fast for 5 days until the Lord's going to answer us. That's what we're going to do, you know? And it was at that point, I think it was maybe like 2 days in, you got a phone call.
That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you got a phone call, I believe, from Costica Antamia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, calling you on a mission trip. He had seen you speak in some videos, and he's like, oh, I want you to come and, you know, preach at this church we have in the Philippines.
Yeah, and I couldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you gave me the number, you know, and I remember being in Jacqueline's kitchen again, you know, and we had his number written down from you, and I call him up and like, hey, you know, I'm Eddie's brother. My name's Joe. And we started talking about this mission trip. And
Yeah, because he had asked me if I'm not available, do I know anybody who would be available?
okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, and I can't remember when I explained to him who you were, I can't remember if I told him that you're a welder or not. I might have.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that came after or before, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I remember the conversation where I was like, yeah, you know, I got my brother Joe, you know, and, you know, he might be a great fit for this, and yeah.
Yeah. And I reached out to him, and you know, he invited me on the mission trip. Of course, you always want to invite people, and told him, look, we don't want to come and just hang around and go on a mission trip and feel good. Like, is there something for us to do, or can we be of actually any use? Like praying and fasting for it, I wanted this to really be from the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and I wanted to be sure like that there was going to be a special connection that, you know, can really use us. And, you know, he said, well, everything's built out of steel here. All the buildings are made out of steel. We need a welder, you know? And I'm like,
That's right.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm a welder. Like, that's what I do. I work with steel, you know?
Yeah, he had asked me if I know anybody else, and I said, well, I know a lot of people. And he asked me if I knew anybody who was a welder, because I wouldn't have recommended you otherwise. I you know, you in missions.
Yeah. At this point.
Yeah, at this point, you know, they didn't connect. And I said, well, my brother's a welder, and he might be available. And I don't think you were going to go.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but he's a welder I know who's young and available, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I gave you his number, and then you guys contacted him, right? Yeah, that's right. Man, that's so long ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because he had asked me specifically for a welder, and I was like, well, I know a guy.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's why.
Yeah. That happened in this house.
Yeah, that happened in the house that we're in right now recording.
That's funny. Yeah. And he's like, great, okay. And I'm like, well, what about my wife? You know, what can she do? And he's like, well, we need somebody. There's so many kids in the village. We need to keep them off the job site, and we need someone to like minister to them, you know? And I'm like, oh, well, Jacqueline's a Sunday school teacher. That's what she does. She loves kids. She loves to play with them and entertain them and, you know, teach them. Like, that's her passion, you know? So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it was perfect. It was, you know, we're like, this is it. We're meant to go. This was the Lord answering our 5 days of fasting and prayer, 2 days in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think within less than 10 days, we were in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Bought the tickets, having your own business, you could just go whenever you want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
To some degree.
To some degree, yeah.
Because you don't have to ask a boss, for time off having
Yeah.
your own business, which is nice. You just have to make sure that you have enough money
Yeah.
to cover the time that you're not making any money
Yeah.
and the money that you spend on the mission.
Yep. Yeah. Your business will fail if you leave all the time,
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, we went to the Philippines and, it was like a 2-3 week trip. It was a construction. That was the main point. We were building a church that was out there. You had Costi Cantemia leading it. And we're always like at least 15 to 25 people deep. The work was, the work was hard. It was hot and humid. We're talking like 90 degrees, 80% humidity. There were brownouts, which means the power just goes very weak. It's not a blackout, it's a brownout. It's just low current. Now you can't weld, your power tools don't work, but you can charge your phone, it'll fry your battery. GoPros got ruined and everything, And some days the power just goes out completely. Some days it starts raining for 3 days. Soaking. Monsoon, you can't do anything.
And you guys weren't in the, because when you're saying mission in Philippines, there's other missions that go to the Philippines, but not to the area that you guys were in.
Yeah, it was very remote.
Yeah, you guys were in like the Muslim part of the Philippines.
Yeah. So you would land in Manila and then you would take one flight. You'd sit in the airport for like 10 hours and just you can catch the flight because traffic is so bad in the Philippines, you might not make it back in time. Even with a 10-hour, well, what are you going to really do? Sleep for an hour? Because traffic is crazy. So you just stay there. You just sleep in the airport. Take that flight to Dipolog, which is on Zamboanga del Norte. And it is the poorest county or the poorest area of all of the Philippines.
Right.
It's remote. It's just fields and rice fields and mountains.
Dipolog is on the no-fly list because of so much terrorist activity that happens in the area.
Well, what do you mean no-fly list?
Like you couldn't take a flight from America to Dipolog. You had to take one to Manila and then have a whole separate flight to Dipolog because like Delta wouldn't fly there or right?
I mean, it was such a tiny airport. It was like, 3 living rooms was the airport. You just land out on a tarmac and, it's very remote. But yeah, back of your ticket said it had some kind of a agreement, by purchasing this flight, you agree to, you will not be, no one will pay ransom for you if you're kidnapped or anything. You know what I mean?
That's why.
It's kind of things like that, like you agree that, you put your life at risk and no one's coming to get you, you know? And we were close to the Muslim part, meaning 3-hour drive, you're in the Muslim part, and we would see Muslims, you would see different flags and things like that. We did these trips, maybe 5 or 6 trips over the course of 2 years. And our last trip, we stayed there 3.5 months. Me and Jacqueline stayed there 3.5 months. We led the church and, led service and taught and did Bible study and did different projects. The police would come by at that point every other day because in the whole region, there was like 5 or 6 white people living there, foreigners.
Yeah.
And they would come by every other day, have a sign, a declaration just stating, we're here, we're not gone, no one kidnapped us or anything like that.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They needed a record.
They needed to keep track so that way if and when you do get kidnapped, they'll know when it was.
Yeah. So they can, have some kind of report or case.
That's crazy.
When the other country's saying, hey, where's our citizen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was definitely risky. We got lucky later on. I realized you're like the only white person you see for months. So, you kind of have some influence. You got some sway. So I realized, let's go to the governor's office. Let's knock on the door. Let's get into the office. Let's say hi, just say we're here.
Poke the bear and see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. So we go in there and, of course, you're like the only white person. So like people want to talk to you and shake your hand and like ask you what America's like. And, eventually an assistant comes out and is like, oh, we get to talking. She's like, what are you doing here? We're doing a mission. She's Christian. Okay, cool. They believe in the Holy Spirit and all of that. Like, oh,
secretary.
Yeah, the secretary.
Wow.
We're like, awesome. She's like, this is so cool. You're Christian. She's like, yeah, the governor's Christian too. And we're like, okay, like we would like to meet him, eventually we schedule a meeting and we get to meet him, you know, and he's like, oh, thank you for coming into my, you know, my county and administering help to people and, you know, my constituents and
Right,
everything.
right.
You know, he's very thankful, very nice, very noble guy, very proper, you know, nice administration he runs and everything. And eventually we linked up with him and made a really good connection to where anytime we came on mission trips, he'd give us armed guards with machine guns and full tactical gear. He'd give us trucks. He'd have us fill them up at his gas station, you know, that supplies the government's vehicles.
Right.
And so like I'm not part of the mission anymore, but to this point, they still, the government gives them land to build homes for poor people.
Wow.
Like they're working in conjunction with local government, you know, so it was a huge blessing to just go knock on the door and see what happens.
Yeah. Would you say that one of, if not maybe the biggest thing that you brought to that mission was their connection to the governor?
I think so.
I mean, that's
I think so.
huge.
Yeah, it's a huge connection.
It's a residual thing that keeps on investing into. I mean,
as long as he gets elected, you know,
as long as he gets elected.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
And I could see, you know, through the NGO building properties for poor people and all of that. And all of that credit's going to go back to the governor and keep him in office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it works out for his benefit.
Oh, yeah.
And also loosens us up to do ministry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when you have support and you have protection too, talking about a Muslim area, well, you know, they would tell us, you know, they would wear a handgun, the guards, and they would tell us, if you want to go up into the mountains, let us know so we can bring our, you know, M16s with us too. Because up in the mountains, you have rebels, communist rebels who, we were there one month, we had no idea, like 5 rebels came down and started firing on the police department. One police officer died. They were shooting at each other, literally a gunfight in a town nearby.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was very serious, you know.
It's a wild place.
Yeah, it's a wild place. It's just anything goes.
Yeah.
Anything goes. Yeah, there was another time there was one Italian man who lived in the city, and he owed some money to the mafia out there, and he was actually, they came in like Terminator 2 style with a box for cakes, and he opens it and pulls out a 12-gauge shotgun, and they, you know, kidnap the Italian man who had a little pizza shop there in Depot Log. They kidnap and pull him away. A few months later, he's back there, you know, he paid off his debt or whatever he did.
That's so crazy.
You know, and we were going to be there that night. We were going to go get pizza in town there. You know, but we're
could have easily kidnapped all 3 of you for a ransom.
Yeah, exactly. We were like, no, let's get back to the mission field. Like, we spent enough time in town getting groceries and stuff. Like, I'm sick of the pizza anyways, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only good thing you could eat.
Right.
But yeah, the mission trips though formed me and Jacqueline very much. There was a lot to learn in the work there. There was just, you know, we were young and we were still dumb, but that desire I had when I was still in the world to experience life and, you know, lick the earth, as I said, experience highs and lows of life. That was still, I think, something from the Lord that he puts on every one of our hearts. And I was trying to fill it with wicked things.
Right.
But when I came to the Lord, I realized, man, mission trips, this is what it is. I had the same feeling when I was living in the world, but in a positive way, which was, I feel alive being here.
Yeah.
You know, I broke the mold. I'm doing something intense. It's difficult. It's hot. It's sweaty. It's gritty. It's messy, but
there's risk.
There's risk, but man, is it fulfilling?
Yeah.
Do I feel like I'm fulfilling a purpose? Like, it was great, you know? So it's that idea, like, God might put that feeling on your heart, and you might try to fulfill it with wicked things, but that desire isn't wicked.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know?
I think it's so good to emphasize that. That was James's struggle. It was my struggle with Christianity. I didn't want to be, like James says, a square. Like I didn't want to be docile and domesticated, you know, and like John Eldridge says in Wild at Heart, right? How God made Adam, and then he made the garden, and then he made Eve in the garden. and he made Adam in the wild, though.
Oh, I see.
You know, and like as men, we still have that desire to pioneer and be out there in the wild and to tame it. Whereas, you know, the feminine part of our species, right? The women, they were they were created in order, in structure, in a domesticated, tamed garden. And that's why that appeals to them as well. And so as men, we want to go out there and pioneer and explore and tame, you know, the dangers of the world to create a garden for, you know, our bride to be in and to, you know, manage and do well. And it's like, when you look at it that way, it's like, yeah. And so, you know, just for young men listening and stuff, even older men, you know, that desire in us to fight and to wrestle and to adventure, and that desire that women don't understand, where we love or are attracted to things that have a certain degree of danger in it, you know, risk. That's not a bad thing. God made us that way. And we need to do that if we're ever going to fight the darkness, if we're ever going to sit there and try to tame what's broken, if we're going to fight, you know, the demons, you know, for lack of better words, our flesh, essentially. You know, if we're going to fight our flesh and conquer our flesh and conquer, you know, all of the different products of the flesh from other people in the world.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
In fact, it's some of the core identity of us as men.
Yeah.
And you found that in the Philippines.
Yeah. I found that in the Philippines and in the risk of mission trips.
Yeah.
You know?
So, okay, not everybody's going to go to the Philippines on a mission trip or this and that, right? Where do you find that now? Like, I know that, you know, you went to Ep18. I know that you run your own business. I know that you're in church. You have a family. You just did your seminary, right? Your bachelor's degree over at the Ep18
Institute.
Yeah, the Institute. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah, at the Theological Institute in Bucharest. That's a lot of moving pieces. Do you find this to be dreary and drab and mundane and day-to-day tasks, or are you also finding it here now in, you know, this part of life?
Yeah, it's not as wild, but definitely I try to still live my life that way, not reckless,
right?
More disciplined. But yeah, I mean, having your own steel company is very open-ended. You know, going to school in Romania and on the other side of the world, you know, doing it at a distance, but still having to go there regularly for my exams and all that. And just the challenge of a different system and a different culture I didn't grow up in, but I can kind of understand.
Right. A different mentality.
Yeah.
Even the school system, the way that they approach school is very different than the American system.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like all these things I see that I'm still trying to create for myself, like a type of a manageable stress on purpose that gives life, you know, a meaning. It gives life a meaning, and it's like dragons to slay. I see like every project I build is like another dragon to slay.
Right.
It's its own project. It's so difficult. You have to rent cranes to lift up thousands of pounds of steel and, you know, move them in position, and there's all these risks involved, and you have to figure out how to like chain it up, and it's very extreme, but man, is it fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much fun.
Absolutely. No, I can only imagine, well, not only imagine, but I'm sure that our listeners can only imagine, yeah, the risks and the joy of building a company and making money and losing money and estimating well and going, I hope I didn't just bankrupt my family. And yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot that's involved in that process.
Yeah. And I think it's like, might take a certain personality or something, but like I couldn't do a 9-to-5.
Same. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with us as Sfrengeu, because out of me, you, Daniel, Franco, Dad, you know, John, and John probably lesser, but the rest of us, we can't work a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
I've worked 2 9-to-5s in my life. Once for 3 months for an architect, once for 3 months for the Gap, the clothing store.
Yeah.
And that's it. And, you know, I talk a lot about like understanding our heritage. And I think in the Eastern European immigrant American community, when you look at our parents, whether they're, you know, Romanian, Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, whatever, when they came to the States, the ones that came to the States were the ambitious, can't work 9 to 5. I want to go out there and just with both hands lay a hold of my destiny and wrestle it to the ground. Those are the people that came over during communism.
Yeah.
Because you have to take great big risks and risk your family and your life in prison and everything else. And so that's our heritage. That's the blood in our veins.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. Like we can't be dad's son and not want to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can't, you
what we
can't
came out
escape
of.
it.
No.
Yeah. So, but yeah, doing the business has been very formative. There's just so many things I've learned over the years, not even talking about welding or, building and fabricating things. That's like the simplest thing I learned
Right.
in the business.
What were some of the big principles you learned?
Big one is working with people's expectations of you. That's a big one. So when you meet a client, they're a human being, you're a human being, and there's curb appeal. What vehicle did you drive in when you met them? How tall are you? I've literally had a client, when I pulled up to weld something on his gate, he looks at me and he's like, man, he's an older guy. He's like, he literally said, you're a young whippersnapper, He's like, I thought you were going to be like 6'4" with a beard and a beer belly and a huge truck,
They were expecting Peter Boros.
Yeah, they were expecting Peter Boros.
This
Yes.
big hulk of a man with a foot-long beard.
Yeah.
And, picks
ZZ
up
Top.
Yeah. Picks up a welder with one hand and a generator with the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And it's like, no, this is me, and so you realize they're people, they're clients, just like anybody else. And you got to manage their expectations. And if you do a bad job of that, or I wouldn't even say bad job, I would just say it's very fair. How you present yourself, it's how they're going to treat you, and because they don't know exactly what services you offer, what you don't, what you're willing to do,
Right.
what your responsibilities even are as a person. They kind of have some expectations. They try to lay them on you. And if you don't know who you are and you don't know how to present it, then you're just going to do everything they tell you to do.
And you're going to let them lay that expectation on you and go, okay, yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. They expected it. I have to do it now. They're paying me.
Yeah. And the thing is, they're trying to get a read on you. And so what you give them to read, like in a book, is what they'll read.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to get that right back. And at the end of the day, you just got to sit back, and you can't get upset at anyone if they mistreated you, essentially. I mean, if they didn't understand the expectations, it's your fault.
Yeah. If they misread you, it is your fault. Because you gave them the reading material.
Yeah, you gave them the reading material. Yeah, managing expectations is huge in working with clients. And there's probably, if you're starting out your own small business or something, like, you need to define what you do. What is it that you do? And a great way of doing that is make a list of what people in your industry or in your line of work, what they do very specifically, and start crossing off which one of those you don't want to do.
Nice.
First, figure out who you are not.
Yeah, that's a great approach.
And then you're left with like 4 or 5. And then you're like, okay, let me try some of these on and see who I am.
When it comes to your relationship to the church and people trying to discover, well, where am I going to serve in the church? How am I going to serve the Lord? Is that also a good approach?
Oh, yeah. That's an excellent approach.
Because if you don't do that, like the clients, if you don't know who you are, people are going to tell you, oh yeah, you're now the sound guy.
Yeah. Oh, you get good with computers, you're the sound guy, or you make the website. Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a good fit. Maybe it's not.
Yeah. Hey, you're not doing anything. As if that entitles me to put you into a position somewhere. Oh, you're not doing anything. We need more people in the choir. You're a choir guy now.
Yeah.
Maybe you are. Maybe you're not.
Yeah.
But if you don't decide who you are, other people will.
Yeah, other people will. Yeah. And if you don't know who you are, I mean, nothing's gonna stop you from letting yourself be pushed around.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you're not gonna push back because you're like, well, what am I pushing back on?
Maybe they're right.
Yeah, maybe they're right. You don't know. So it's like, that's important to figure out soon.
Yeah.
And a great way is actually looking inward. You got to look at your context. You got to look at literally the physical frame God gave you. Like you brought up Peter Boros,
Yeah.
me and him were on opposite spectrums of a body frame.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like being a welder, I can go do fencing. We're talking digging holes in the sun, posts, sacks of cement. We're talking big truck trailers, multiple guys moving, lifting things. But the work is actually not complicated mentally. You
Right.
just get physically tired. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
So
it's like,
if you were like a big guy who wasn't like any good at all with figuring out problems or whatever, that might be a good fit in your
yeah.
scenario.
Oh, and it's good money. If you could
Mhm.
do, oh man, you can make really good money doing fencing. If you can knock it out and you have a good
Yep.
crew, excellent career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's if you've got a good frame, but you're just bad at, you know, problem solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to do math. You don't want to do geometry to figure out, you don't want to design. You don't want to talk about colors,
Right. Right.
you know?
And then you got a guy, who maybe is better on the other end, but doesn't have, the brute strength
Mm-hmm.
to do all that. And then you got some guys like Pete, who's got both.
Yeah.
He's a good problem solver, and he could literally just physically pick up something and get it
Right.
done.
Right.
But you're completely right. Like, it's about figuring out who you are, because if not, everybody else will tell you who you are.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful statement, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. You got to look at what God gave you to work with. And that even goes for, physical, but also personality wise.
Mm.
What are you into? I like designing things. I spend probably half of a project drawing out something. And then building is just one aspect of what I do. I do a lot of designing. I like that.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy that. I like colors and finishes and using different products to make different looking finishes. I enjoy this,
Yep. That's why I called you whenever I'm working on finishes.
Yeah, yeah.
You give me good advice. Yeah.
So that's the service I offer. And then, people call me up for fencing and it's like, no, I don't do that, I did do one recently, but it was, the money was good. They were a Christian school. It was a pleasure to work with them. Victory Christian School, over there off of Garfield. And it was like, yeah, it worked out. Money's money.
Yeah.
But that's not what I prefer to do. That's not who I want to be. And that's a big thing that I learned through this business is like, who do I want to be? And I can't just pick one and become them. Well, God gave me my limitations and my personality and my temperament
And your preferences.
and your preferences. So like you got some room to work with, but there's limitations. Like you can only become really a couple things,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just be whoever you want. And it's like,
That's not reality.
yeah, it's not realistic.
Last question, Joe. You have a business, you have a family, you went to school in Romania, and then you also are part of a Romanian American community.
Mhm.
The church, and I know because I've been a minister in a church and still am, and the church can very easily nonstop ask for more of your time. And sometimes I find that people fall into a category of being overly involved in church to where they sacrifice their family, their business, and everything else, which that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Or they go, well, I'm fed up with it, and then they're not involved at all. And
Right.
you've always had a pretty good balance between serving in church, but not letting it consume you or run off the rails. How do you set boundaries? What when people put pressure on you and they go, well, you need to and you should, and
Yeah.
right? How do you set a boundary? Maybe people are afraid of like offending people or saying no because in our community that's not really the norm.
Yeah.
How do you set a healthy boundary and have people respect it and still be polite and friendly and all that?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you set boundaries? I think you have to make a list of priorities. There's a hierarchy, and I think first it's you and your wife. Relationship with the wife, with the spouse, that is number one.
Mhm.
Number two, it's the children, which includes the whole family. And then I would say probably third is how you make a living. and then I would say ministry, because the thing is, it sounds backwards maybe in people's head. I'm a ultra realist. I only care about realism and what can really happen. You know, we live in 2025.
When we say ministry, we mean like institutional ministry.
Yes.
Now, your relationship with the Lord flows through all of those things that we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
Your personal relationship with God, your relationship with your wife, obviously in the context of Christianity, the kind of dad that you're going to be to your kids, and them being healthy in the Lord.
Yeah.
So those two things are separate. We're talking about institutional ministry, not walking with the Holy Spirit in everything that you do. That flows into your business, that flows everywhere, right?
That's everything. Yeah. I mean, the Holy Spirit is breathing life into all of that. It's the umbrella, it's the ebb and flow of everything. You know?
But it makes sense. Like, so after your business would be like, well, then it would come institutional ministry in the church, the capacity you can serve.
Right.
Yeah. Because you don't want to fall into the extreme where you're serving in church so much that it's hurting your ability to provide for your family.
Yeah.
And that's not good either.
And I think there's a bit of a tension there that, you know, I think there's definitely testimonies of people who, you know, couldn't provide, but they went into ministry for the Lord, trusting that God will provide, and he did.
And that's different when God calls you into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like that story where, you know, that man went out to battle, and he goes, God, if you give me the victory, the first thing that comes out of my house, I'll give it to you. You know, and then his daughter comes out of his house, and he sacrifices his daughter. The thing is he offered something to God that God never asked him for. And I think that happens a lot, you know? So I think in that scenario that you're giving, where it's like, you know, if the Lord's impressing it upon you to take a step in faith and, you know, shut down your business to go into ministry full time. That was my experience, you know, then that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
You know, but when people, that's an exception. When people take that step on their own and go, well, it's okay because it's for the Lord. So,
or other people did this. I'll copy their model.
So that's going to be my model now, you know, and then they end up neglecting their family or their children, or, you know, their ability to provide. And now they're strapped, and you could easily fall into a mentality of feeling like God owes you now. You know, like, look, God, look how much I sacrificed for you. And God's like, I never asked you to.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just that mentality of sacrifice or obedience.
Yeah. Totally, 100%. Yeah, it
reminds me of a conversation we were having the other day, right?
Yeah. You can't make up. So if there's that hierarchy, you can't make up neglecting your family by, you know, evangelizing people.
Oh, that's so good. You can't make up neglecting your family by evangelizing people.
Yeah. I believe we're going to be judged. I'm not sure on all the theology, but I believe we're going to be judged the relationship with the spouse.
Yeah.
And then it is in the same judgment, but it is a separate note on it between the children. And then, you know, how you conducted business, if it was ethically.
Yeah.
Then how you did ministry. And they're not going to cross over to where like, well, you neglected your children, but like, yeah, you brought like 1,000 people to the Lord. So this works, you know, 500 people is equal to like one child.
What's the ratio of exchange here?
It's like, no.
Yeah, you got negative 2 points here, but positive 3, so it's a wash.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
And I think that's really, really important to understand. Simple question. I know I said that was the last one, but this one will be it. How do you say no? Like, what if people are unhappy with your no?
Yeah. What if people are unhappy with your no? I don't know. That's a funny one, huh?
Well, let me ask you, if you say, hey, I can't serve in that because, you know, I have a wife and kids and a family and I just don't have the time, or maybe I just don't feel called to it.
Yeah.
You could have the time, but just because you have free time doesn't mean other people are entitled to it.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, if somebody were like, well, you know, Joe, we're all called to serve, or we're all, you know, and they try to guilt you, how do you respond to that?
Yeah. You know, I haven't been that pressed on that.
Oh, okay.
Not quite. But I try to not give any details. Don't explain why you can't. You don't owe that to anybody.
That's so good.
And
you're allowed to just say no.
Yeah. And it's a little bit, people are nervous to dig more. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're kind of like, if you offer it up though.
Yeah.
You know, I'll put it on you to push me for whys.
Yeah.
And you might not want to, get into my business. So
Yeah. No, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It's something that I grew up making the mistake of is always going, and it was underneath the guise of caring about people or underneath the umbrella. At least that's how I felt about it. And I think I was genuine in that belief, where it was like, let me say this no to you, and then let me make it my business how you receive it.
yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, no, how you receive it's your problem.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, like I'm not gonna, just throw it out there and be rude, but it's just like, no, this is an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
No, I can't. Well, why can't you? I'm sorry, that's kind of personal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I never wanted to be like, well, I'm gonna pray about it, but secretly it's a no, and I'm just gonna use God as a scapegoat. No, I don't want to use God as a scapegoat. No is an acceptable answer. And if it's not acceptable in your culture to say no in your world, then that's an unhealthy culture. I'm sorry. I don't really care how people feel about that. I mean, obviously there's some exceptions. There's, like I'll give you an example. If you have a boss, you're an employee. Yeah, there's a context there that you don't say no, you know what I mean? Unless he asks you, something extreme, like go and murder somebody. Well, yeah, you can say, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's exceptions. Sure, I get that. But ultimately, it's like if somebody feels entitled to your time and they're not actually entitled to it, like a boss or something,
Right.
then it's okay to be like, yeah, that's okay. And we don't have to be enemies, and we don't have to hate each other, but it's okay to say no.
And on the flip side, don't be surprised if you're not asked to do ministry later.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, that's so good.
You didn't carry the load then. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because
it comes to trade-offs.
it comes to trade-offs. Because the thing is if I'm asking somebody to serve in ministry and they go, hey, I just don't feel comfortable. And I go, oh, hey, no problem. I'm not even offended. And ask them a second time and they don't feel comfortable either. In my head, I'm going to naturally, whether I like it or not, assume that they're probably just not comfortable doing ministry. I don't want to bother you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be annoying.
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to ask.
Yeah. You would hope they'd reach out when they're ready, but they got to also understand you can't skip step 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
You got to start at the beginning then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Because sometimes people might fall into the opposite extreme where they're like, yeah, I only want to do like the really like cool ministry.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you need to be formed in the harder ministry.
You got to stack chairs.
You got to stack chairs. Yeah. And then you'll work your way up. Because the Bible is clear. He who's not faithful in little can never be faithful in much.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would encounter that in youth ministry where people would be like, well, I want to be in leadership. And I would think to myself, you don't even come to service. Leadership of what? Of the services you don't attend? No. And it's like, well, I want to be in charge of activities one night. Show up. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, sometimes people have unique callings. I understand that. Not everything has to be cookie cutter, but
right. Yeah, we're talking in a more rigid institution.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Mission trips throws all of the rules out the window.
Yeah, call the call that God has for people like prophets are always outside of the institution.
Yeah.
Camel hair, leather belts, wild honey and locusts, living out in the wilderness. Prophets.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense. But yeah, Joe, it's been really good, man. It's cool just kind of going down memory lane and catching up. And I'm really glad that through this episode, we were able to showcase like your journey. And I know that it's going to, minister to different people and connect with them, especially just understanding, what that journey looks like, even in dating and marrying outside of the culture, even in, stepping into missions, the wildness of the heart and running your business and boundaries. And yeah, we've covered quite a lot the last couple hours. So
absolutely.
Thanks for being with us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we'll see you next week.